Welcome. Welcome to Creativity-Hive's weekly program. My name is Miriam Haugen, and I am one of the founders of Creativity-Hive. We help budding videographers achieve massive editing skills through one-on-one teaching and live group coaching. Our weekly program brings you people from across the globe that are working in the video industry. Interesting people doing interesting things, people that you can connect with and learn from. And today, let me bring him onto the broadcast here. Hey, we're talking with Jason Cox. He's a senior media producer at Homesnap. So tell me tell me a little bit more about your current job.
Yeah, sure. So as senior media producer at Homesnap, I am basically the go-to video guy for all sorts of, if it moves in the company, I'm usually behind it with one other kind of cohort. So together we produce mostly marketing materials, exactly what you'd sort of expect at a tech company. We're doing new product demos and promos for various social media channels or paid advertising on the internet. So whenever we launch a new product or service, that's a big chunk of what we do. But, there's all sorts of other things, from tutorial videos and testimonial videos, which aren't always the most exciting to do. The promo stuff's a lot more fun. Event videos, now that those are starting to actually happen again, hasn't happened a whole lot in the last year or so, obviously. But yeah, I think that's a quick summary of what part of what I do.
Okay, so what? Tell me about your path, though. This is not your first job out of the gate, obviously. So what kind of training did you have? Let's start there.
Yeah, like a number of people in my position, I mean, not everyone, but I did start with a pretty standard bachelor's degree in film and video production that I got from Penn State, but that was now 16 years ago. And so after graduating from there, I actually didn't go directly into stuff related with video production. I was an English minor as well. Spent a couple years actually as a features and entertainment reporter for a newspaper, but eventually decided to get back into the video side of things and decided right away to kind of try to forge my own path a bit. And so I started off really as just sort of a independent one-person shop for all sorts of video production needs for people, just whatever if it could be done with one person. So occasionally hired someone to help me out, but did a lot of freelance work in the Washington D.C. area, which is where I spent most of my 20s. And that's, unsurprisingly, it's tough, especially if you're just totally on your own. I mean, I formed an one-person LLC. It was just me. So then eventually I got to kind of supplement it a little bit. Started getting into software training as well. I was using Apple and Adobe software all the time and got pretty comfortable with it. So I started down a path of getting certified to become an Adobe certified instructor and an Apple certified trainer. They have very specific names for their training programs, and basically spent 10 years just doing a mix of the video production, but also training. And to make a long story short, it was finally a couple of years ago that actually a good friend of mine who works for this company, Homesnap, she was like, what would it take to get you to go back to the real time, like a real office and a real company? And she kind of like sucked me in, and she was a very persuasive personality. And so I returned to an actual office environment a couple of years ago, and it's actually been a good transition for me.
That's great. She had to convince you, huh?
Well, it's everything's pros and cons, right? And so I loved about my life the free schedule. I was in control of my own schedule virtually all the time, and that means a lot to me. And so my biggest thing was like not being in control of my own schedule. But I found, she basically persuaded me. She knew that, and the company was pretty liberal with a lot of work stuff even before the pandemic. And, I also saw, some signs on the wall in terms of the training industry shifting, and I'm not sure if I would be able to or want to kind of shift and adapt with it. And so I just decided to take a leap of faith, and it's again, as I said before, been a pretty good move.
I've noted that an awful lot of people that work in video production, and especially in video post, have taken very circuitous routes to wherever it is they're working now. I of course, work with a lot of the colorists over at, like, say, mixinglight.com. And most people that are colorists had no intention of becoming a colorist to begin with. It's something that they kind of fell into, and there was an opportunity, and they did a little bit of it, and it was kind of fun. And somebody said, "Okay, you're a colorist now." And they're going, okay. And so it sounds like you've had a certain amount of that too.
Yeah, also I just like, I guess, variety in life. And like, while I liked the freelance world, because, I'm working with different people and clients all the time, I reached a point where I was kind of like, well, it might be interesting to work for like one person, I guess, basically, and try to build something up. I came on as like to become their main video person and build up their video game and social media presence and marketing presence. And like, I was like, you know what? That's a new and interesting challenge. And I don't know if I'll do it forever. Who knows? Although hopefully no one here hears me say that. But I don't worry. I'm actually in our little studio, which is mostly soundproof anyway, so I'm safe. But yeah, it's good for now.
Surely nobody can expect you to do anything forever,
Exactly. Yep.
But at any rate, but it's good you're happy now. So anything, what if you had to do things over again in your, like, would you have gotten a degree in film? Would you have, is there anything you would have changed? That's what I want to know.
Oh man, big questions. I mean, I definitely, feel pretty confident I would have at least still gotten a similar education in terms of, production degree or bachelor's degree in video editing and production. Some days I debate whether I went to like the right school for me, the right college for that, but Penn State wasn't bad. I explored going to like, grad school, like some people do consider, and like, I don't think that, I'm glad I didn't do that. Actually, I thought about it for a while, but I don't think it would have added a whole lot to my skill set. I think it's just a matter of once you get the, few years of undergrad in, just get out there and start doing. So, I think one thing that I probably made challenging for myself, in a way, is almost doing things backwards. I think when you're younger, your early 20s and out of college, if anything, a lot of people will do an office job first, whether it's a production company or in like, like what I'm doing now, working for one company, making all their video and media content. And then when you get a little more comfortable, break off and maybe do your own thing, create your own production company or whatever. I kind of did it, I think, a little backwards compared to most people. So it was hard. It is hard to just in your early 20s, like start doing something on your own, just a one-person shop. Do I regret it? No, but it had definitely some challenges associated with it.
Miriam and I got started in our own business back when I left college, just a little bit before graduating, to set up a portrait studio, and quite a few years ago now. And she went on, we were both in training to become teachers. She went on to go ahead and actually teach music in the public schools for about 6 years. And then in that time, she started doing some work in the studio and didn't have time anymore to go and do this stupid teaching in the public schools kind of thing, and went to work full time in the studio. So since then, we've both been here in the business. But, for us, it was a number of years back with the dramatic decrease in business for portrait studios. There really wasn't any need for having two photographers in the business anymore. And I started playing around with a little video and got an email from Patrick Palmer wanting me to have dinner with him at NAB in 2014. And I haven't looked back. I've been totally video. And of course, that's how I got all of a sudden doing things where I got to meet people like you, who I find fascinating and work with, and then of course Mo and so many others. But it's fascinating to watch how people have come into this and where their skills and interests lie. It's very different. Now, is there anything particularly that you like doing in the video production that you do now for the Homesnap? Is there a particular part of it? Do you like the capturing? Do you like the graphics? Do you like editing? What's your favorite part of it? What is more fun?
Well, it's a good question. I'd say I probably would have had a different answer a year ago. The pandemic has influenced my answer, as it's influenced all of our lives. Before the pandemic, like a lot of people, if you work for a company, was going into an office most days of the week, 4 out of 5 days a week probably, and we were shooting a lot more live video, and then suddenly March 2020, boom, Axe comes down. We're not doing that anymore for a while, and it forced us to kind of rethink, like, okay, what can we do from home now? And so while I've used After Effects for years, I would never proclaim to be some sort of like whiz bang amazing motion graphic artist. I think that's a tough title for me to put next to my name sometimes. Like, I'm technically capable in the program, but I do, trying to be honest, like, feel like I sometimes lack the creative components that you need to marry with the technical component to be really amazing. But anyway, last year we've had to do a lot of video content more creatively with no video to work with. So I've shifted more from like Premiere to spending more time in After Effects, and it's forced me to become a better motion graphic artist because I'm spending way more hours per week in that than I used to. So I find that to be challenging. It's made me better. And, the company's also been a little like generous with allowing me to buy like fun toy plugins to play with. And so I've really fallen in love with it. Again, I don't consider myself to be a top tier motion graphic artist per se, but that in a way still has become one of my favorite things to just do, is just to play in After Effects. And I've had a lot of time over the last year to like amp up my skills and develop that.
That's cool, Jason. What would you say is your top 3 plugins? Not that we kind of doing any sort of sponsorship for them or anything, but just
let's see. One that's a lot of fun to play with and tinker with is Pastiche. That's a very cool one where you can take hundreds of little layers, whether they're glyphs or icons or something like that, and have it take the shape within an alpha channel of another layer and animate them to morph into different shapes and stuff. That's just fun to play with. And I'd say almost anything by, what's the name of the company that makes these? They're the ones with all their product names have the word monkey in it, like type monkey, shape monkey, layer monkey. They make some super fun plugins to play with. I mean, I get it. Kinetic text animations have been around for a while now, but I still think they actually hold up a little bit. And I just have fun playing with that and making those. And they make a great one. I think it's Layer Monkey. They blur together a little bit with me, but there's one that allows you to like, I do a lot of I have to animate a lot of interface stuff for our app, the Homesnap app, a lot of UI. I take stuff that our graphic designers and UI designers make, and they design a lot in Sketch, if you guys are familiar with the application Sketch. And there's a great plugin. This is not a creative plugin, it's a technical plugin that allows you to port stuff designed in Sketch into After Effects. It makes my life 1,000 times easier because I don't have to like rebuild the interface from scratch in After Effects. And so anyway, there's a special monkey plugin that basically allows you to do the sort of like exploded layers thing where I can have all the elements of the UI with just a few clicks, like fly on or fade on in some way. And then, there's a lot of like simple daily utilitarian plugins like K-bar that just make it so much faster to get around the application. I think that's really important when you spend 30 plus hours a week in After Effects out of 40. We all know After Effects is not the fastest, most user intuitive program on the planet. So anything that helps us get around it faster is helpful. There are other fun ones I'm blanking on right now. I've got a whole list from AE scripts that I've purchased over the last year or two, but those are a few that come to mind real quick.
Okay, so it seems from your choice, it's more motion design. I was trying to find if you throw something in there that would say visual effects, but I see it's more motion design because of the type of job you're in. The question, you have another company, the media one, where you used to train and so forth. So is there a big change in jumping between having that company and now having to have assignments, so to speak, or job specs and to follow them without, or do you have as much total freedom as you can muster?
It's a good question. I think I'll answer it a slightly different way, or big picture. Like, the hardest shift for me when I returned to an office environment a couple years ago, when I started working for Homesnap, and again, I was working on my own. Before that, it was just like, suddenly I was just in an office with 100 people, and like not on my own in my dark little cave or whatever at my place. And so that was a weird adjustment. And yeah, instead of just like emailing with clients or the occasional phone call, I was face to face regularly with multiple, maybe shorter assignments. But I and different divisions within the company, like the marketing team or the development team or the graphic design team, they're kind of like my clients within the company. So they come to me with a request. Marketing wants a promo video, the training team wants a tutorial video, the design team wants an animation made for the UI. And I settled into it pretty well, I'd say. I didn't find it overly complicated. It was a little overwhelming just being around in a full-time office again, but I've adapted pretty well. And I don't know if that totally answered the question, but
yes, certainly it did. And do you find, are you the only person they come to? I mean, is everything's kind of pipelining into one person, or do you have a team?
I have a cohort. There's technically two of us on the video team. I'm usually the kind of go-to contact first, and then we kind of, but we fairly evenly distribute the workflow. So he's not here today. It's just me in our little studio as we slowly return to the office. I'm now coming back in like 1 or 2 days a week. But yeah, long story short, there are two of us. We're hopefully hiring a third by the end of the year. But we're quickly realizing, from home, we were able to pretty much tackle all the needs, the two of us still for a while, even as the company was growing. But now that we're getting back into the office, we suddenly have more ambitions to do more live shoots again and more live streaming for the company. And we're quickly realizing like, a third person would be really helpful soon. So hopefully we'll be doing that.
So your advice would be to do it the way you did it for currently, as in start in an office environment for a company and then maybe branch out on your own, or the other way around, now that you have the necessary experience behind you?
Again, I don't regret by any means like the way I've played out my career so far. But I think if you want to make things a little easier on yourself, it does not hurt to get a few years under your belt, probably shortly out of school, at a company as some sort of entry-level assistant editor. Again, whether it's for a creative agency or a little production company or a corporation on their kind of design or video or marketing team, whatever it may be. I think that is an easier path rather than the way I did it. Not to say that the way I did it is impossible or special in any way, but I've always been sort of kind of roll on my own sort of person, and I know that about myself. And it's not that I don't play well with others. I think I do. It's just I sort of have the mentality of like, I just want to get things done on my own timeline, and the best way to do that is to do it on my own. So I just know how to work within the confines of my own sort of personality and quirks. So I never want to give a recommendation that I think works for 100% of people. Everyone's a little different. I would just say, just if you are going to start off on your own, just be prepared. It isn't an easy path. Is it doable? Yeah, I totally supported myself for 10 years on my own shortly after college. It is doable. You just got to get out there. You got to make, contacts manually, the old fashioned, what is the old fashioned way today? But you got to get out there on the internet and user groups, and you got to, it doesn't hurt to go to a conference or two, certainly, by any means. So you just got to be very proactive about that sort of stuff.
And I guess without hogging the floor, the biggest question I have would be the following. If you had to do a course, you've been an instructor yourself. Let's assume you had to do a course, as in learn a course, and you were looking for somebody or company to actually learn that from. What at this stage, given the fact that COVID's here and LinkedIn Learning and so many different channels out there, what would be the one turning point for you to choose a company, or the differentiator between that company and anyone else, for you to be able to choose that company to do or to learn from?
So make sure I understand properly, like you're talking about literally like what training kind of online service would I go basically take a course from today, and why would I pick them? Like we're talking about the Plural sites and the LinkedIn Learnings of the world, that sort of thing. I mean, well, as a couple of us here know, like, I mean, most of us here know, this is a little more inside baseball because we, I guess, know a lot of people in the creative software training world, that is its own little world. And so over the years, like, I know a lot of the people I like and have gotten along with, and I think are pretty good trainers. A lot of them are at LinkedIn Learning, formerly Linda. And so I just, but I feel like that's cheating just because, like, I know a fair amount of the ones who produce like a lot of the Adobe courses, for example, and some of them are friends or at least professional colleagues of mine. I loved Pluralsight, who I produced many courses for, by the way. So hey, you want to throw a few pennies my way? Subscribe to Pluralsight. There's some great Adobe courses on there. They've just nothing bad about them to say, except for the fact that they've sort of steered away a bit from the creative software world as much, and they focus a little bit more on technical and IT software and coding software and business development and management. But those are usually the ones I honestly will point people towards today. It's so easy to just pay $30 a month and just get what feels almost like a infinite amount of resources on such a wide variety of software today. It's kind of like, I was just talking about with some coworkers, when you're browsing Netflix today, it's just like an overload of content. You almost don't know what to pick from. It's the same thing on some of these like Pluralsight and LinkedIn. There's just so much that you can browse forever. And so I don't know. I know it's a pretty.
Would you gravitate to rather to somebody that offers you kind of a one-on-one live training sessions compared to recorded sessions? What do you feel about that?
Oh, so yeah, I mean, so I've done both, being on the trainer end. I've done live in-person courses for years through like Future Media Concepts and Ledating, and I've done online live as well, and I've done pre-recorded. There's no doubt. I mean, I feel like I can talk more frank about this because I don't do as much training anymore, admittedly. And it's it's an aspect of my life I do miss. I'll do special events once in a while, but just honestly, nothing beats live interaction for sure. It is more expensive. There's just no way around it, unfortunately, to be able to interact with a live human and ask them live questions. It's going to be more expensive, but yeah, sometimes it's just invaluable to, when you get stuck on a point, to instantly, if you're on a 3-day course or something like that, to be able to just be like, I got a question right here. You run into that when you're watching a pre-recorded course. You're not going to be able to do that. Obviously, pre-recorded are cheaper, which is always important, and you can watch them at 2 a.m. if you wanted to. So for certain people and certain types of learners, and you can rewind over and over again. So pros and cons to both. But I if I had to pick and choose, live, if possible, if you can get your boss to pay for it, go live.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks, Jason. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've been through, of course, all kinds of training in live circumstances, and especially the last year over, so many Zoom presentations. Plus, of course, especially when I was first getting started in video post back in, about 2014, I spent hours and hours on lynda.com learning how to do both SpeedGrade and Premiere Pro. But yeah, having a live instructor, even if it's online, if you have a live instructor, you can ask a question of. I found after you get a lot of the basic stuff you can do with the pre-recorded ones, but after you start getting past doing just basic work, there are so many things that pop into your head that having that live, say, hey, excuse me, now if I wanted to do this, what would you think of that? How would that work? And those kinds of things they just get invaluable after you get to a certain level of understanding the whole thing. So.
Yeah, you're right. As the farther you go along, like if you're doing something that is a super introductory overview of something you're totally fresh faced with, like, yeah, you can probably get away watching, an online course without too much of an issue. But you're right. The deeper you get, the better it is to have another kind of, dare I say, pro to talk to in real time about it. Sure.
So any other questions, guys, or do you have any parting shots, Jason, that you want to?
Oh boy,
leave us with?
Parting shot, man. First off, thanks for having me, for sure. But I'm just trying to think if there's any magical parting word. I've never been good with the whole like inspirational speech thing. That's
yeah, and I didn't warn you. Come up with an inspirational quote at the end.
Yeah, I actually, it's funny. The one thing I was thinking about before this even began, like if there's one thing to kind of wrap on, we already sort of touched upon, which, is, what order to try to pursue your career in, just revisiting that a little bit and how I, no regrets the way I did it. Starting off on my own makes things a little more challenging. So, for those who are just getting started, I think it is something really worth thinking about. And, know that if you go the route of like really trying to do your own thing at first, you have to be a sociable person. You have to meet and greet people and get your name out there and go to events, whether they're local or big conferences. That's not for everyone. So that's why some cases it may be better to start off in an office environment. Office. I used to poo-poo sort of office jobs, to be honest with you. And again, everything in life is a bit of pro and con. Like, yeah, I mean, there are some dumb things about office life and corporate life and that sort of thing. Absolutely. But I don't poo-poo it as much as I used to. There's one other question you had pitched my way as possibly being talked about too. And it was sort of like talking about, at this point, future goals too. Like what might be next? I'm not done with my career. And I ask myself that a lot too. And, it's like, let's say we hire a third person, suddenly, just by the way totem poles work, I go up a notch or whatever. If there's a new entry level person, I do worry in a way, and I'm trying to figure out and struggle with like what comes next, because when do you get to a point where you're not like doing anymore? You're now like managing and making decisions more. And not that I'm fine with that. I like doing a lot of logistics and that sort of thing. But when does the seesaw go too far in the other direction? And how do I make sure I'm still happy and getting to do and create and not just oversee and that sort of thing, which is definitely, something I've been thinking about with my time with one company. Like, what does the future hold? I don't know, because I'm in a way only a couple of years into my corporate life, if you will. So we'll see how that all plays out.
Yeah,
I was wondering how if that would be something that would pop up in your future. Miriam and I, with the studio, we started out with just us and like one other assistant part-time employee. And for a while in the early 90s, we had up to 10 or 12 people, maybe 8 of them full-time. working for us and supervising a full staff, and we're back down to just the two of us now. So we've been up and down, but that was definitely a very different life when we went from being primarily people that were just doing photography and doing the lab work to where we were doing photography, but we were directing other people to do the lab work, the production, and all those kind of thing. And we were having to do a lot of supervising and all the hiring and training, and sadly, the terminations also, which, people say, yeah, bosses love to fire people. Oh my God, you hate to fire people. It is the most horrible thing you can think of. And most everybody does everything they can think of to get away from having to suggest that someone maybe would be a better fit in a different place. But I was wondering if you were, now that you're working in corporate, and especially when you're talking about bringing on a third, if you had thought of the whole thing of you might be moving up.
Yeah, I do. I hope to strike the right balance with that, because there are parts of it where I do like being. It is sort of what pulled me into the job in the first place. Is like when my friend who literally brought me in like pitched it to me as like, you will help guide the entire way that Homesnap handles video and marketing and all sort of media like that. You'll be the person. I'm like, that's very cool sounding, just from like an important, self-important standpoint. But then also realizing like, oh, one day that just might mean though that I'm no longer playing with After Effects 30 hours a week, which I would miss if it went down to 5 hours a week. So the long story short, I don't know what the answer to that is. It's still a story that's playing out. It's TBD, and we'll see.
And your After Effects, Jason, sorry. How do you feel After Effects has matured, matured as much as it can, to the point it is that, as we both know and all of us know, it's a little bit tedious at the best of times to work with.
Yep.
And your workflow seems to be, you work in pipeline now, so it's not parallel. You stream. And how is that affecting? Are you lucky enough to have a few 50-node render farms sitting behind you that you have a green screen in front of and not telling us about? So are you just working on one machine or two, or what's your spec like, and how do you feel After Effects works with your particular streamlined workflow?
Sure. I mean, so far we're going to continue to amp up our game. Like, so much of the stuff is like solo, like one person can work on a 30 or 60-second ad for a product, and we haven't needed to create any sort of like super high-end render farm situation yet. We are getting there. I had my first time where I was thinking boy, that would be handy right now when we did like, are you guys familiar with a data clay templater? Which is, one of these services that's, you enter in data into a Google Sheet, and you basically have some placeholder layers in a composition, and suddenly you need 250 versions of the video with just like a couple logos swapped out. And, doing that on one machine kind of sucked. And we want to be able to do more of that stuff in the future, because we support now Homesnap. Our primary client base is real estate agents, and there are a few 100,000 that use Homesnap to some degree, either a little bit or a lot in their daily life. And we want to be able to, start producing media content that's personalized to them. We did it, a little while ago at the MLS level, of which there's only 200 or 300 in the country. So that was manageable. But suddenly I think we're starting to think about like, all right, now we want to produce a customized video for maybe 10,000 agents that are part of like our highest end marketing product that we offer. And so we're going to really be evaluating that in the near future, and have to, build something out here in our little studio soon. But long story short, most of our projects are, me or my cohort, we tackle one project at a time. We review each other's stuff and give each other comments, of course, but we kind of like let ourselves do 95% of it before we show it to others for review and that sort of thing.
Okay, that's great, because Creativity-Hive is exactly the same model, I guess, where we're looking at doing very customized training sessions, and that's why I asked you about one-on-one or recorded sessions, all these are going to be one-on-one sessions, and the differentiator between us and others would be the fact that you choose what you actually want to do. So it's not an A Z kind of pathway, because you might be doing editing and the next person is doing editing, but your workflows are completely different. So we look at what you need.
Yeah.
And we do a 30-minute, interview session to find out what you actually need and actually build the course around your specific needs and goals. But I'm saying too much. Miriam is
No, you're
I'm
great.
just not trying to sell it or anything. You said customize, so that's what piqued my interest. So maybe perhaps when you reach the level where you're looking down at the minions and saying, well, not minions, but your workforce, and saying, guys, well, you got to do this, and you don't want to instruct them anymore. Give Miriam a mail, and we design something. I use the word bespoke. Miriam doesn't like it because it only belongs in Britain.
No, I love it.
Miriam loves it. I guess it's not an American word.
Sure.
But,
not an American
design.
term. Yeah,
completely custom design, and it's really it's totally affordable, and it's something we want to kind of build a model for, because right now everything's just recorded sessions. Nobody's taking the time to listen to people. It's so important.
Yep.
So maybe we get about that at some point. Yeah. So thanks, Jason. I appreciate everything that you answered. It's great talking to you.
No problem.
Yeah,
I was just gonna
fun.
Yeah, I was just gonna say super quick. One thing you just said that made me think, just talking about one of the banes of all of our existences, and one thing as a trainer, I think probably one of the number one things I try to teach early on, even though it seems tedious to so many people when they just want to get into the fun stuff, is how to frickin' organize your project and label stuff in a clean, orderly way. Everyone organizes a little bit differently, I get that, but to just at least name it and make it logical, because nothing is worse, especially when you have one other coworker and we organize totally differently and he doesn't always label things the way he should, organize the way he should. And so, long story short, we all hate going into someone else's project, After Effects project. Nothing's worse than that, because everyone thinks a little differently. And that's always one of the number one things I enforce on like a day one of class, even though people kind of like get a little bored with it. I'm like, no, this is important. You'll appreciate it one day.
Thank you for that.
The workflow setup is very important. It's the most important. I know, everyone's excited in the beginning, just open up the software and start. But setting up your workflow and assets so what I would suggest for your coworker, and maybe Miriam will kill this from the recording, is go into his machine, take the Premiere Pro project and hide it. Put it in some obscure folder, but so you need to follow. You teach him how it's supposed to be done. And you'll never make them, or just take it away, put it on a flash drive, don't delete it, and say, well, you've got to redo this entire project.
I'll think about it. We'll see if it might lead to bloodshed in the office, but we'll see.
Mo is actually very good at getting people to get organized right off the bat, and it's huge. I know I was listening to a colorist one time talk of how he worked in a small firm. They had like 2 or 3 colorists and a whole bunch of other people, and he didn't think that much of having things organized, and he was in the midst of a 5-day contracted setup. He was like about 2 days in when he came down with a horrible stomach flu and could not continue. And so one of the other people had to jump in with the client in the room the next day and try and complete this holy mess.
Oh boy.
And so, and with the client sitting there, the guy was having to finally go, I have no clue what he's been doing. I can't see how this has been organized and everything. And that was so embarrassing that he says he learned that it's wise to name your layers or your nodes or whatever they are, and to organize your media pools and bins and folders. And this stuff is important because, yes, somebody else may need to finish this job. And or you may need to come back to it in 2 weeks and you don't remember what you did.
Yep. Oh, yeah. All been there.
Oh, well, thank you, Jason. This has been awesome. I'm going to put Neil out and Mo out and just say goodbye. Thank you.
Great.
For
well,
coming.
Thanks again very much. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And you can connect with Creativity Hive by right now joining our Creativity Hive Inner Circle. And that is on Facebook. And so just search for Creativity-Hive Inner Circle. And I will put a note down in the comments below too. So we will see you next time.